This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Ash, Christopher Mitchell and 212th Trooper, and brought to you by Normandy 1998 who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or become a channel member and select the Pickle Producer tier, since among other benefits this will guarantee that your video is made, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Also, while I have you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel since it costs you nothing and helps tell YouTube you like what I do. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Our tale begins on Cybertron, with Jack and Arcee having just made their way through the Decepticon space bridge. However, this is not a social visit to the Blue Bike's homeworld, as they're on a mission of the utmost importance, to reach Vector Sigma and recover the lost memories of Optimus Prime, who following his battle with Unicron has reverted to his old self, Orion Pax, and resumed his place as a disciple of Megatron, just as he was before the war. Following the key to Vector Sigma, which Prime had entrusted to Jack before the battle, the pair head in the direction of Kaon, with this being the last place anyone would expect to find the great computer, considering it was once the site of gladiatorial blood sports, and later Megatron's capital during the Civil War. Nonetheless, knowing the time is of the essence, the pair speed onwards, though it seems they're not the only ones on the move, as having detected the Decepticon space bridge signal and the jury-rigged sensors, one among their number was able to throw together from what was left behind. A group of rough-necked bots are also in hot pursuit, curious if this is their great enemy coming out of hiding to call for reinforcements at long last. For the countless cycles since the fall of Cybertron, these four warriors have roamed the dead world, living only for each other and their shared purpose, to find and kill Shockwave for what he took from them, and perhaps at last that day has finally come. And so it is that the hunters descend on Kaon not long after the travelers from Earth do, finding them locked in combat with one of those disgusting Insecticons. No matter, they have dealt with Megatron centuries before, and can do so again. Then once they are done, they will capture these strangers, and interrogate them on where to find Shockwave. As one, the quartet each in their alt modes descend, with it being quite a sight to behold, as from seemingly out of nowhere, Jack and Arcee watch as a robotic pterodactyl, triceratops, stegosaurus and T-Rex charge the Insecticon. Having the advantage of flight, the pterodactyl reaches their enemy first, slashing it with its long wicked-looking claws, though this just buys the others time to attack, with the triceratops using this opening to ram its foe and bowl it onto its back. Then, once it's defenseless, the T-Rex transforms back to robot mode and shoves his burning blade through the Insecticon's spark, ending it in an instant. From behind him, the Stegosaurus transforms back as well, angrily growling that he should have at least let him get a crack at the bug too before he went and finished it off. Tersely, the former T-Rex snaps back that he was too slow, while addressing him as Snarl, and reminding him that around these parts it's first come, first serve. At this name, something twigs in the back of Arcee's mind, as she's sure she's heard it before, though she doesn't remember any bot with an alt mode like this. Unfortunately, she is not the only one struggling to put a face to a name, as now that the Insecticon is gone, the leader rounds on Jack and Arcee, bellowing at them to tell them where Shockwave is right now, or they're joining that bug on the scrap heap. Gearing up for a new fight, the two-wheeler states that he's dead, and that she killed him, having shot him through the optic and left him trapped in a collapsing space bridge last time she was here. A claim that makes the leader snort with doubtful derision, though in contrast, the Triceratops, who was also transformed back into bot mode, tells his boss that this would explain why they've never been able to find a trace of the Cyclopean sack of scrap. However, this support is far less interesting to Arcee than what the Triceratops calls his leader, Grimlock. As while she may not remember every member by name, she can hardly forget the captain of the infamous Lightning Strike Coalition force. Speaking up, the two-wheeler states that she never knew what became of Grimlock or his forces after the fall, revealing that she's part of Optimus Prime's team, and that she and her partner are on a mission to help him recover his memories, since they were lost as part of the battle with Unicron. Haughtily, Grimlock scoffs that of course Prime's gotten himself into trouble again and needs someone else to bail him out, since he's always been too weak and too soft to be an effective leader, all the while arrogantly claiming that if he were there, he'd have beaten the Chaos Bringer without having to give up his memories. From the look on Jack's face, it is clear that he wants to scream at the big oaf and defend Optimus, though knowing better, Arcee gently shakes her head, before stating that of course Grimlock's right, since everyone knows he was one of their mightiest fighters, so she would be incredibly grateful if he and his allies would help her rescue Optimus, a sly smile forming on her face, as she claims that he would surely be in their debt if they did. Liking the sound of Prime owing him one, Grimlock gruffly nods that they will help, while beside him the final member of his group to return to bot mode, the Pterodactyl, smirks that it's not like they've got anything better to do with Shockwave 6 feet under. As part of this new alliance, Jack and Arcee learn that his name is Swoop, while the Stegosaurus is called Snarl and the Triceratops is Slug. Originally they had another member named Sludge, but they lost track of him before the Exodus, so he's either off-world or offline. In turn, Arcee fills the quartet on all that has happened since this world was lost, especially the events of their war on Earth, with this exciting the ruffians that have long dreamed of a chance to tangle with Megatron himself, though when they learn that Optimus, or rather Orion, is among his ranks, Grimlock makes a grave pronouncement that if they can't save him, he will destroy him, since they can't afford to have him use that big processor of his to help the enemy, with his squad echoing the old saying, "It's better to be gone than a con." Due to the Insecticon having been summarily dealt with, Arcee is able to accompany Jack down into Vector Sigma's chamber this time, as are their new allies, which is a welcome change, as like in canon a swarm of scraplets invade and attempt to consume everything. Thankfully, Jack does not have to fight them off alone, with the bots instructing him to focus on recovering Optus's memories, while they hold the line. During this time, Grimlock reverts to T-Rex mode and shows off his flame breath, melting the little pest down to slag before they can even get close, and proving that fire works just as well as freezing. With this sorted, all there is to do is wait. Then when the data transfer is complete, the allies prepared a space bridge back to Earth for the tricky part of the mission, capturing Orion long enough to restore his lost memories. However, when they radio Ratchet to inform him they're inbound and bringing extra friends, they receive no response, with this tipping Arcee off to the fact that something is amiss, with the most likely reason being that the Decepticons reclaim the space bridge, though the only reason they would do so and then open it up for them to return is if it's an ambush. Relaying this to the brutish bunch, the Blue Bike instructs them to use caution, since they'll need to find a way around this trap, though smirking maliciously, Grimlock retorts that this isn't really what his squad does, instead preferring to bust through any obstacle that stands in their way. To prove this point, he then charges through the portal as fast as his T-Rex legs will carry him, a ferocious roar on his mechanical lips as he pounces and bites down the first thing within range. As it turns out, this is Megatron's arm, which had been extended in preparation to finish off the ones carrying Optimus's memories and thus end the lineage of the Primes. Not long after this, the other members of Grimlock's crew follow after him, but before they can join the fight, their boss orders them to stay back, barking that he's already engaged the Chief Con, so they're not allowed to have a go until he's at his fun. Using this moment of speech to yank his arm free, Megatron snarls that this is most un-Autobot-like, as they tend to bunch together to cover for their weakness without any appreciation for the glory and passion that comes from single combat to the death. Though glaring into the Decepticon leader's red optics with his own, Grimlock retorts that there's the problem. He's no Autobot, he's a Dinobot. With this declaration, the T-Rex charges, Flame Breath preceding him as if he believes Megatron can be defeated as easily as a scraplet, a misapprehension if ever there was one, as sidestepping the robotic dinosaur, the former gladiator of Chaos grabs him by the back of the neck and slams him face first into the wall of the cavern housing his space bridge. Nonetheless, Grimlock is not out of tricks, with him putting his tail to good use as he lashes out to strike the back of Megatron's knees, tripping him and allowing the Dinobot captain to revert to bot mode and draw his sword. Raising it high, Grimlock then attempts to end the prone Decepticon as he did his Insecticon minion. Though showing far more foresight and aptitude for combat, Megatron kicks out, trusting his leg to have greater reach than Grimlock's sword, as he plants a steely foot in his foe's face, forcing him back and allowing the villain to transform into his bot mode as a means of recovery, performing a loop-de-loop in midair, then transforming again to land a momentum-powered elbow drop to Grimlock's back. Now it is the Dinobots' turn to be prone. Though like Megatron before him, he is not at the mercy of his opponent for long, as he too shifts into his alt mode, using the enhanced strength of his T-Rex form to throw Megatron off him, returning the fight to the state it began in. As this is happening, a new figure ground bridges in, Orion, and while at first Arcee, the Dinobots, and the defeated Autobots who failed to stop Megatron fear that he has come to back up his leader, he instead surprises them by declaring his allegiance to the Autobots, even if he does not remember everything. Seeing his chance, Jack then rushes over to the truck bot and fulfills his mission, with this bringing an end to Orion packs once again, so that Optimus Prime may be reborn. Now fully himself, Optimus advances on his ancient enemy, who is still locked in combat with Grimlock, and while the Dinobot does not appreciate the interruption, ordering Prime to stand back or he'll scorch him with his flame breath too, Megatron likes it even less, as his battle intelligence tells him this is a fight he cannot win. As a result, he has Soundwave create a ground bridge so that he may flee, though as he goes, he vows to have his revenge on them all. With this, the Autobots and Dinobots are at last able to reconvene, as Optimus gives his most heartfelt thanks to them all for saving him, while also extending an invitation for the Dinobots to join their ranks, an idea Ratchet clearly thinks is a bad one, remembering what loose cannons they were during the war. Though having faith in his old friend, he does not challenge it. Surprisingly, despite their antipathy towards Optimus's leadership style, none of the Dinobots object. As for Swoop, Slug, and Snarl, this is their best shot at taking down Megatron after Grimlock so greedily kept that fight all to himself, while for the boss Rex it's his chance at payback, for Megatron making him look weak by not dying when he tried to kill him. Subsequently, the Dinobots follow the Autobots through the ground bridge and back to their base, where Raph and Miko are waiting for them. Obviously, the kids are delighted to have Optimus back, though it is hard not to be excited about 4 new allies, especially when they discover they can turn into giant robot dinosaurs, one of whom breathes fire. In fact, Miko looks like she might pass out from giddiness. That is until she actually tries to speak to them, at which point Snarl brusquely rebuffs her, warning her to stay out of his way, since he's not watching where he steps for some puny organic. At once, the girl's joy turns to heartbreak, and seeing this, Bulkhead storms forward, planting a hand on the Stegosaurus' shoulder and ordering him to apologize right now. though rather than feeling chastened, the red bot merely cracks his servo joints, while provocatively asking, "Or what?" However, before Bolt can give his answer, likely at the end of a wrecking ball, Optimus steps between them, and in his commander's voice orders them both to stand down. He recognizes there will be some adjustments as the Dinobots settle into life on Earth and the way things are done here, though they must remember they are all on the same side, so he doesn't want to see any infighting, since that helps no one but the Decepticons. Seeing his leader's point, Bulkhead nods an apology to Optimus, though when all eyes turn to Snarl, wondering if he will meet the Wrecker halfway, the Autobots are left disappointed, as the Spike-Tail simply shrugs away from Prime and Bulkhead, before stomping off to rejoin his squad. Unfortunately, these are not the only teething problems the now joint units will have to face, as another arises almost immediately when the Dinobots announce their intent to go out and hunt cons like they did back on Cybertron. As there is no imminent threat that requires their attention, Optimus is happy to let them go, though he does have one non-negotiable condition, that they acquire vehicle alt modes to blend in with Earth and avoid raising suspicion. Sarcastically, Slug calls this a great idea, before turning to Swoop and in a voice laced with irony asking why didn't they think to do that already? Picking up what his comrade is laying down, the pterodactyl pretends to think deeply for a moment, before gasping as though he's had an epiphany, and replying that maybe it's because when Shockwave was tearing them apart and reconstructing them as beasts, he might have taken away their scanning abilities, to ensure they stayed the way he wanted them. With Slug finishing off this cruel two-bot routine by adding that he bets the great and oh-so-wise Optimus Prime never considered that, did he? Humbly, Optimus replies that he did not, and he apologizes for any insensitivity he may have shown for their condition, a claim which makes Arcee, Ratchet, B and Bulkhead all grit their teeth, as they can't stand the sight of Optimus prostrating himself before such disrespectful ruffians, though surprisingly, the Dinobots seem just as angry, with Snarl snapping at Prime not to pity them, since they're not charity cases. If anything, the Truckbot and his followers are the ones who deserve pity, since the Dinobot alt modes have made them stronger than ever, so he bets any Dinobot could take the Autobot leader in a fight right now. Evidently, strength is not the only thing the Dinobots have gained from this transformation. Though refusing to rise to this aggression, Optimus instead continues with what he was saying, that he is sorry for any insensitivity he may have shown. However, for the sake of their anonymity, which is a key term of them being allowed to remain on Earth, he cannot allow them out of the base while they are unable to blend in. Unsurprisingly, this is not taken well, as Grimlock and Snarl begin to rage, demanding to be let out at once, while Slug and Swoop make cutting remarks about how Prime was always too cautious, but now he's given his ball bearings to the human government. Having had about all he can take of these boars' rudeness, Ratchet speaks up, reminding the Dinobots that though they had their own little force back on Cybertron, they were and still are under Optimus's command, so they will not speak to their superior officer that way, a claim which only makes the British bunch guffaw, as if they're not going to take scrap from Prime, why would they take it from his lackey? Curtly, Arcee asks if they'll take it from her, one of her arms now transformed into a blaster, while her optics blaze with a fierceness that makes it perfectly clear to the Dinobots how this little two-wheeler was able to kill Shockwave when they couldn't. Thankfully, Force is a language the quartet speak fluently, and Arcee has demonstrated it repeatedly, with this being enough to silence their protests, albeit with incredibly ill grace, as Grimlock belligerently tells his followers to come with him, before stomping deeper into the base, and away from the exit. Following this exchange, the Dinobots do not attempt to leave the base, even if they do make their frustrations at being cooped up known at every possible opportunity, though this may not necessarily be the net positive Optimus had anticipated, as while out on a scouting mission to recover one of the many Cybertronian relics hidden on Earth, Bumblebee is ambushed by the human terrorist organization Mech, who steal his T-Cog, leaving him unable to transform. Naturally, everyone is sickened by this butchery of one of their kind by the humans, though this does not stop Slug from caustically commenting that none of this would have happened if Prime had just let them out, since Swoop would have been able to go with B and would have driven those fragging scavengers off in a spark beat. Though he hates to admit it, Optimus cannot help but somewhat agree that part of the blame for Bumblebee's situation lies with him, with this standing as a painful lesson that he and his team will need to learn how to work with the Dinobots as much as they will need to learn to work with them. To this end, when a new artifact turns up on their scanners atop a distant and frozen mountain far from any human settlement, the Autobot leader agrees to bring Swoop, Slug, and Grimlock along with Arcee and Bulkhead, while Snarl is to remain behind since as the Dinobot's medic, he will be assisting Ratchet in looking after Bumblebee until they get back. At once, Swoop's value to the team becomes apparent, as by virtue of his flight capabilities, he is able to scout the mountaintop while his allies are still making their way up, with him chirpily reporting that it looks like two cons are en route to the artifact, and from the looks of it, they have a head start. Impatiently, Slug demands to know if the bird brain got a look at what they're hunting for, with Swoop correcting that he's a pterodactyl. But yes, he saw the relic, back, and it appears to be a large hammer. At these words, a hopeful smile forms on Optimus's face as he states that it must be the forge of Solus Prime, which if they could recover, may be able to create a new T-Cog for Bumblebee. However, at his side, Grimlock grunts that Prime's forgetting something. That hammer's not just for forging new stuff, it's also said to be able to repair anything too, which means it might be the key to reversing what Shockwave did to him and his squad. Nodding, Optimus replies that of course he would be happy to use the forge to fix them as well, though brusquely Slug retorts that he doesn't need fixing, and that he's quite happy as a Triceratops, while Swoop concurs, saying that he's not giving up his wings for anything. Testily, Grimlock growls that they don't have to if they don't wanna, but he's going back to the way things were. Then with renewed vigor bordering on recklessness, he begins scrambling up the mountainside while Optimus and the others have to struggle to keep pace. As a result, the hulking T-Rex is the first to reach the summit where Knockout and Breakdown are waiting for him, with the latter now wielding the forge. Having heard about the Dinobots from Megatron, the devious Doctor has packed a special precaution just in case Prime sent them, with this being his Energon prod, which Grimlock eyes with more wariness than he does the ancient weapon of Solus Prime, remembering all too clearly the sting from one of those things, as Shockwave and his assistants would use them to keep him immobilized while they conducted their inhumane surgeries without any form of anesthetic. Unsurprisingly, this leaves Grimlock more than a little triggered, which in turn brings out his erratic side, as without much thought he transforms into dinosaur mode and rushes Knockout with a roar. Unfortunately, the Forge is not the only Iacon relic the two Decepticons have, as earlier Knockout acquired a force field generator, which he now puts to good use, halting the big guy in his tracks, before giving him a rather painful and literal blast from the past with his prod. In that moment, it is like a switch is flipped in Grimlock's head, as all traces of restraint and strategy are promptly abandoned, with the Dinobot leader becoming more like the raging beast his alt mode resembles as he begins rampaging. By now, the others have reached the top as well, though this does them little good as in his berserker state, Grimlock seemingly cannot tell friend from foe. Recognizing what has set their leader off, Slug and Swoop inform the others, with this earning a deeply empathetic sigh from Optimus, who states they must subdue Grimlock without hurting him, as he has already suffered enough. To this end, he instructs Slug and Bulkhead to help him grapple Grimlock, while Arcee and Swoop try to recover the Forge from the Decepticons. Unfortunately, it is too little too late, as while Swoop is able to fly over the shield generator in pterodactyl mode and wrap his claws around the Great Hammer's handle while attempting to pull it free of Breakdown's grip, he simply is not strong enough, with the situation only getting worse when Megatron himself ground bridges in and shoots the flying Dinobot out of the sky. Sneeringly, he then taunts that Optimus really ought to keep a tighter leash on his subordinates, before he and his depart through the portal, making this an unmistakable victory for the Decepticons. By now, the team have managed to subdue Grimlock enough that he has begun to calm down, though this is almost completely undone when he sees the cons escaping, as he briefly erupts in a fit of rage, before ultimately settling down and transforming back to bot mode, a bitter scowl on his lips. No one speaks as they ground bridge home, as Arcee and Bulkhead both blame Grimlock for their failure to recover the Forge, since if he were less of a renegade, they would have been able to defeat Knockout and Breakdown, while in turn the Dinobots all see that their failure, since they're not used to losing yet have done so twice to Megatron now. However, not everything is doom and gloom, as when the team arrive back at base, they see Snarl conducting a T-Cog transplant on Bumblebee. Initially, they believed that Ratchet had convinced the Dinobot medic to put his into B out of guilt for failing to save his voice box, though to their shock, the Spike Tail reveals that this is Bumblebee's own T-Cog, and that while the others were away, that human agent contacted them with the location of a mech outpost housing all their stolen Cybertronian parts. Figuring this was their best shot at getting the cog back, the two of them ground bridged in, and he's impressed to say that while B may just be a scout, he fought like a true warrior, keeping up with him in his Stegosaurus mode. In his deep, sonorous voice, Optimus replies that he is happy to hear they are able to retrieve Bumblebee's T-Cog and to hamper Mech's operations, though he must ask, how did they activate the ground bridge? However, this just makes Snarl grin crookedly, as he replies that while he may look like a brute, before the war he was an engineer, so using a simple ground bridge was Protoform's play for him, as with this operation, with this giving Optimus much to think about, as he still has much to learn about the Dinobots and how to properly utilize their talents, as it is clear they are highly capable, under the right circumstances. Unfortunately, this also means they can be an incredible hindrance in the wrong ones, such as when Wheeljack returns to Earth on the tail of the Decepticon Dreadwing, who has come to renew his oath to Megatron. It's like the Dinobots, Jackie has no great love for Optimus or the way he does things. This immediately puts him in good standing with Grimlock and his friends, as while one group are shock troopers and the other Black Ops, they're able to see the clear similarities between the Wreckers and the Lightning Strike Coalition force, and so reminisce about the trouble they got up to during the war. In fact, this bond of fraternity is even able to extend to Bulkhead, with he and Snarl agreeing to bury the hatchet from the day the Dinobots arrived, as the Stegosaurus joins the Wrecker team for a game of 3-a-side lobbing. Unfortunately, before a winner can be decided, Ratchet busts up the party, reminding the group of large lats they have humans underfoot, with Bulk agreeing and apologizing to both the Doc and Miko. A little disappointed at his buddy's seeming domesticity in contrast to the Dinobots, Wheeljack begins to spend more and more time with them and less with Bulkhead during his stay at Autobot Outpost Omega-1. As a part of this, he learns of Optimus's refusal to let them out unless it's somewhere the humans can't see them, and viewing this as more of Prime's stupid rules, he agrees to smuggle them out when he goes to answer Dreadwing's challenge. This does mean leaving Bulk in the dark as he would go running to Optimus, though Wheeljack stifles any guilt he feels by reminding himself that his green buddy left him hanging when he quit the Wreckers, so a little of his own medicine won't kill him. However, this decision proves to be a double-edged sword, as while Bulk is not kidnapped like in canon, Grimlock and Wheeljack are in his place, as the explosive-wielding Decepticon's invitation to fight was still a trap, and one that increased numbers cannot solve. As a result, it falls to Optimus and Bulkhead, who had been tracking Wheeljack's signal to lead the remaining Dinobots in a rescue mission, with Swoop engaging Dreadwing in the air with ground support from Slug and Optimus, while Snarl uses engineering skills once again, this time to work with Bulkhead in defusing the bombs the Secret strapped to their friends, in the hope of taking down any Autobot foolish enough to come rescue their comrades. Thankfully, due to having put their grudge behind them, Bulk and Snarl are able to deactivate the explosives before they go off. The Green Wrecker does have some choice words for all of them about putting their own egos above their orders, with Jackie conceding that maybe Bulk and by extension Prime has a point, while even the hard-headed Dinobots have to admit that maybe their too-soft leader isn't wrong all the time. While this growth on the part of the new additions is a win, it is not a total victory, as Dreadwing does still manage to escape, though not before establishing something of a rivalry with Swoop as the only flyer on the Autobots side. Likewise, Wheeljack departs not long after, as while he still wants to hunt Dreadwing and avenge his fallen Wrecker comrade Seaspray, he also wants to come to understand the Earth a little more, as if he can make a Bulk brain like Bulkhead-wise, maybe there's something special about the place. However, before he goes, he's sure to bid goodbye to everyone, thanking Bulk for coming after him, and urging the Dinobots to keep their troublemaking to acceptable levels, since he doesn't want Prime tossing them out on their skid plates before he can get that lobbing rematch. Following this, the episode Crossfire, which is mostly Decepticon-centric, with the Autobots not arriving until the end, when Megatron has been lured underground to engage in single combat with an Insecticon under the control of Arachnid. Due to being an isolated area, the Dinobots are also here, making the capture of Megatron all the easier, though as in canon, when Dreadwing arrives with a Vehicon horde and threatens the Autobots, Optimus agrees to trade Megatron for their lives, a decision he quickly comes to regret, as Megatron still has the Vehicons attack the heroes while he and Dreadwing escape. Naturally, this infuriates the Dinobots, though Grimlock most of all, as he vents his rage on the Vehicons, melting some with his flame breath while biting others in half. However, they're not the only targets of his ire, as once they're all back at base, he pins Optimus to the wall, roaring that he's too weak to be a leader, since if they'd just attacked the Vehicons rather than trying to cut deals with the cons, they'd have Megatron and Dreadwing as prisoners now. Grimly, Optimus agrees that it was a mistake to assume that Megatron would honor their bargain, though he will not apologize for attempting to minimize conflict and casualties, as while he knows Grimlock doesn't understand it, that is a form of strength far greater than any physical might. Scoffing arrogantly, the T-Rex calls this soft-hearted nonsense, with his comrades doing the same, though perhaps out of gratitude for their previous outing, or because they have enough sense to see that it's pointless, they do not escalate the matter beyond that. From here, a lot of events begin lining up with canon, as due to the Nemesis Prime incident occurring in a military base, the Dinobots are not allowed to get involved, while likewise they are excluded from Bulkhead's solo adventure and the children's stealth mission to recover the Iacon files aboard the Decepticon warship. However, as a result of acquiring said files, the Dinobots are at last given a mission of their own when the Autobots are split into teams as they race the Decepticons around the world to see who can retrieve the relics first. Specifically, they're assigned to retrieve an unknown relic in a volcanic region far from civilization, meaning they can act without fear of being seen, just how they like it. Unfortunately, just because they're allowed to cut loose doesn't mean this will be an easy mission, as right off the bat when they locate the object, they find that it's a batch of highly lethal toxic energon or toxin, which they now must destroy rather than retrieve, since there is no way to safely store it back at base, and leaving it would just allow the cons to convert it into a bioweapon that could wipe them all out. Speaking of the Decepticons, due to having figured Optimus would assign the Dinobots to the most distant reading, Megatron himself has decided to go after this one, though he is not alone, as due to the events of the episode Armada having gone like canon, he now has command of Arachnids and Secticons, including the fearsome fighter Hardshell. As a result, it is the two of them who close in on the Dinobots and their prize, forcing Grimlock to give a command that sickens him to his spark: run, as their first priority has to be keeping the toxin out of Megatron's hands. Taking flight, Swoop quickly identifies an active volcano which should allow them to safely dispose of the toxic rock, but just getting there will be a challenge, as Megatron and Hardshell hound them relentlessly. Thankfully, one among their number is actually a tactician, that being Slug, with him using those skills to come up with a plan that might just give them the edge. To this end, he and Grimlock attempt to buy time by holding off Megatron, while Snarl and Swoop as the faster Dinobots keep heading towards the volcano with the Toxin capsule. As expected, Megatron refuses to allow his prize to slip away, having Hardshell follow Swoop in the air, though this was the plan all along, as when the Insecticon tackles the pterodactyl out of the sky and grabs the capsule, Snarl uses this moment to reveal that it is an empty prize, as he is the Toxin, having made use of his thick armored plating to withstand the noxious substance. However, smirking that Hardshell can have it if he really wants it, he then makes use of his medical knowledge coupled with his brute strength to shove the block of Toxin right into the gap in the Insecticon's chest armor, granting him an excruciating death, while also giving the Stegosaurus the Insecticon kill he wanted from earlier, and the Dinobots a much safer means to transport the toxic energy onto the volcano now that its poisonous properties will be trapped inside Hardshell's body. Meanwhile, Grimlock and Slug, as the most offensively oriented members of the squad, continue their fight with Megatron, with the Decepticon leader discovering that while he could go toe-to-toe with one Dinobot, two at the same time is another matter, as they demonstrate their unique combat abilities to put him on the ropes. This includes Slug slamming into the villain with his armored head for a level of force even the former Gladiator is unaccustomed to, while Grimlock uses his burning breath to fuse several of Megatron's panels together so that he cannot transform into a Cybertronian jet mode and get the jump on him like last time. As a result, it is not long before the feared Conqueror is brought to his knees, and while Grimlock does consider executing him, Slug has a better idea, suggesting his boss should do what Prime couldn't, and bring Megatron back as a prisoner, since then everyone would see who the better leader is. Grinning menacingly as he reverts back from his T-Rex form, Grimlock agrees, forcing the red-eyed Decepticon to his feet at blade point, while Slug stands ready to skewer him with a horn if he tries anything funny. However, Megatron does not resist, waiting silently as Swoop reports in a few moments later, confirming they've thrown Hardshell and the Toxin into the volcano, ending their threat. Seeing no reason to hang around this barren wasteland any longer, Grimlock then has Snarl contact base and informed them to prepare a ground bridge and any restraints they have on hand, since the Dinobots are coming home, and they've got a far better prize than any other away team. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.